I was fortunate to have parents who were very avid jazz listeners and music listeners, so I heard a lot of music in my home. I heard musicians like Ahmed Jamal, Miles Davis, John Coltrane, Sonny Stitt, Gene Ammon, so forth and so on. So at the time you get the opportunity to play music, I wanted to actually play the drums, and my father said a little too loud for the house, he felt. So then he was a trumpet player somewhat, and he said, "You want to do trumpet?" And I said, "No." And so alto saxophone was kind of my third choice, but it worked out well. And I was hearing a lot of saxophone in the house, so from then it was a natural kind of inclination to try to learn some of the things that I was hearing that my father was playing, the records. My parents would take me out to see jazz musicians as a young person, so when I was about 13 or 14, my father took me out to see one of his favorite saxophonists. His name was Sonny Stitt, and it was just an unbelievable revelation. I got to go back and meet him and talk with him, and it was at that point that I said, I want to do just what he does. I want to live in the New York City area. I want to travel all over the world, and I want to make records. That was my goal. And then I got to meet other musicians after that. My father took me to see Dexter Gordon, which was another highlight. I got to meet Ray Brown, Milt Jackson, just many others in the Denver area. And it was so inspiring to talk to them. And that was my conduit to know that I really wanted to be a jazz musician. That was the goal. I was getting a lot of opportunities to play with local professionals in the Denver area. Then I went to college at Berklee College of Music, but prior to that, I was afforded an opportunity to be in what was called the McDonald's All-American Band. I auditioned, and they take 2 students from each state in the United States as a senior. The representative from Louisiana, we met because we marched in the Macy's Day Parade, and the representative from Louisiana was Delphio Marcellus. His brother was Branford Marcellus, and Branford was one of the people I was really looking up to and looking forward to meeting. So I met Branford at that occasion. I told him my goals, and at this point now I knew about Art Blakey, and so I wanted to play with Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers, and he was a former messenger. So he came to Denver at a later occasion with Winton. He came over my house, got a chance to play with me in my house, and we practiced together. He told my parents that he felt that it would be good for me to go to Berklee College of Music, and that would hopefully give me opportunity to audition with the Messengers. So that's what I did. I went to Berklee College of Music. We heard all kinds of soul music. So I heard Bobby Womack, I heard Curtis Mayfield, I heard The Temptations, I heard Al Green, I heard Parliament Funkadelic, all of that kind of stuff that you can think about. Rick James, all that kind of music was in the home a lot. And then also Shirley Caesar, we heard all other kinds of music, Aretha Franklin, gospel music as well. So that was in the house all the time. So I heard all those kinds of music, and then I didn't really hear other kinds of music until I started traveling. So I didn't know who Pink Floyd was. I didn't know what about Led Zeppelin. I didn't know Carlos Santana. I just didn't know about that music because we were really listening to black music. It wasn't that we were racist, it was just that was the music they were hearing on their stations. So that influenced me a lot, those musics. And I pretty much recorded all of those musicians through my life. Marvin Gaye, I pretty much recorded a track from all of them. Touring and traveling was a great equalizer for me, to see all these various styles of music and to learn about how music fit together, different musics fit together. So sure, I got to meet Pink Floyd, the band, on the road. I've had opportunity to meet musicians that work with Bob Dylan. I got opportunity to meet musicians who knew Frank Zappa. So it was great, and it would just open my ears up, and it let me know that it's all big one family, believe it or not, and that we're all kind of learning from each other and influencing each other. First tour I went on was April of 1987, and I went on for about a month tour with Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers. I joined him earlier that year for a 2-week engagement at Sweet Basil at that time in New York. But I told my mother that I joined Art Blakey, but she wanted me to stay in college because she really wanted me to get my degree. I went back to the university and said, I want to be with Art Blakey, could I get some preferential treatment towards traveling? And so they allowed me to travel and be part of the Jazz Messengers. So we go on this month-long tour, and I've got 2 or 3 different books from these particular courses, and I probably read 3 pages because I'm on the road, I'm traveling, I'm trying to keep up, because playing with an organization or ensemble like that is very daunting, and I needed to learn and get in step, because obviously I'm behind the curve. The musicians at that time in the band were Kenny Garrett was the alto saxophonist, Wallace Roney was the trumpeter, Donald Brown was the pianist, just some phenomenal musicians. And I was fortunate to have them to help guide me, but I didn't have time to be studying Western history books or other curriculum that I was taking. So that lasted about 3 or 4 months before I left college. Yeah, I decided that I wouldn't finish, but my mother stayed on me, God rest her soul, and I said, I promise you, I'll get the degree later. So I did in my late 20s. But the first trip with Art Blakey was just unbelievable, because one day you're in Zurich, Switzerland, the next day you're in Paris, France, and the audiences are 500 sometimes, 1,500, small venues, but the people that have come are avid jazz listeners. They're aware of the music, they know the history, and they love Art Blakey because he was one of the icons, one of the contributors, one of the people that really established this music that we're playing called jazz. So it was an honor. You had to pinch yourself, and so it was a great time. What a process is, I kind of think about people. So if I want to write a song for my mother, then that conjures a certain idea or framework, or even maybe a harmonic process. Or you think about a situation or maybe an event that happened in your life. But usually it's about people, or usually about events or things, or a motivating idea, maybe possibly musically, stuff like that. Just don't take yourself too seriously. Just enjoy the moment, and don't try to be, it's hard not to want to be perfect. So you just have to let your hair down and realize the mistakes, or what will help define you and what will help allow you to grow. So we learn, the biggest things that we learn, or the way to success, is through the mistakes. So Art Blakey would always tell us, if you don't make a mistake, I know you're not trying. So the mistakes allow you to find yourself. Sounds a little silly, but it's not. Write more originals. I mean, quickly, earlier in my life, I wanted to do more things that have been recorded by other artists and had written. So maybe I would have began my writing process a little earlier, because you can find yourself better, and then obviously there's a financial value there too. If I'm playing a ballad, do I see a couple hold hands, or do I see a smile? And the highest compliment one time was I was playing, and a woman in the front row started crying, because that's the ultimate, to drive someone to some kind of an emotional experience with you. A zillion stories that have all shaped me in some way or another, and there'll be more. So that it's a great question, though. We need those stories, and we need to be able to laugh at ourselves again, and not take ourselves so seriously, that we can grow from that information. Because it's all about really one word. We're all trying to evolve. And to evolve, you have to be able to do a self-analysis of yourself. You have to be able to look in the mirror and honestly say, you know what? I'm not doing that as good as I can. We got to refine, and evolve, but do it with humor to ourselves, and know that it's a process.